Some ancient structures feel old, some feel beautiful, and some feel impossible. Not impossible in the sense that they are fake, but impossible in the sense that when you look at them closely, they seem to break the rules of what we assume ancient civilizations could do. No cranes, no steel beams, no laser levels, no modern transport. And yet somehow these builders moved massive stones, carved mountains, and created structures so precise that even today, engineers and archaeologists still debate how they did it. So today, we're counting down 9 ancient structures that shouldn't exist according to modern engineering. And as we go through them, ask yourself one question. How did they do this with the tools they had? 1. Baalbek, Lebanon. We begin with one of the most intimidating ancient sites on Earth, Baalbek. At first glance, it looks like a massive Roman temple complex, but the real shock is in the stones beneath it. Some of the blocks used in the platform are absolutely enormous, weighing hundreds of tons each. Nearby quarry stones are even more famous, with estimates placing them among the largest ever cut and moved in antiquity. Now, think about that. Modern construction companies need specialized equipment just to move objects a fraction of that weight. But here, ancient builders somehow quarried, transported, and placed these giant stones with a level of accuracy that still impresses engineers today. The real mystery is not just the size, it's the logistics. How many workers would that take? What kind of ramp system could move something that heavy? How did they prevent the stones from cracking under their own weight? Baalbek doesn't just look impressive. It looks like a project that should have required modern machinery, and yet it stands as proof that ancient people could accomplish far more than we usually give them credit for. 2. Kailasa Temple, India. If Baalbek is about moving massive stone, Kailasa Temple is about removing it. Located at Ellora in India, this temple was carved top-down from a single rock face. That means the builders did not assemble it piece by piece. They carved away the mount until the temple emerged from the stone itself. That is a terrifying way to build. One mistake and you ruin the whole structure. There is no going back, no replacing a wall, no swapping out a broken block. Everything depends on planning, patience, and absolute control over the carving process. And it's not just a simple cave or hollowed chamber. Kailasa Temple is a full architectural masterpiece with intricate details, columns, levels, and symbolic carvings. To modern engineers, this is remarkable because it represents subtraction on a monumental scale. Instead of adding materials, the builders sculpted a complete structure out of one continuous mass of rock. That takes vision. That takes precision. And it takes a level of confidence in your plan that almost feels unreal. 3. Sacsayhuamán, Peru. Now let's move to Peru, where Sacsayhuamán still leaves visitors staring at the walls in disbelief. The site is famous for its huge polygonal stone blocks, fitted together with astonishing precision. The stones are irregular in shape, but they lock into place so tightly that it often looks like they were poured together rather than carved and stacked. That's what makes the engineering so powerful. This is not simple stacking. This is structural intelligence. The stones are shaped to distribute stress and survive earthquakes, which is why these walls have endured so well over time. In a region where seismic activity is a real threat, that kind of design is not accidental. It reflects deep understanding of material behavior and structural stability. What modern observers struggle with is the execution. How do you shape stones of that size so precisely? How do you transport them? How do you test the fit without modern instruments? The answer may involve incredible patience, skilled labor, and clever tools. But even with those explanations, the result still feels like it belongs in a different engineering era. Sacsayhuamán is not just stonework, it is problem-solving in granite. 4. Puma Punku, Bolivia. If you want a site that looks like it came from another world, Puma Punku is one of the first places people point to. This site, part of the Tiwanaku complex in Bolivia, is famous for its strange stone blocks, especially the so-called H-shaped blocks. Their uniformity and angular cuts have made them a favorite of anyone fascinated by ancient engineering mysteries. At first glance, they almost look machine-made. That's the part that grabs people. The sharp corners, clean grooves, and repeatable forms suggest a very high degree of planning and stoneworking skill. And while some claims about Puma Punku are exaggerated online, the real site is still astonishing enough without the hype. The question is not whether the builders were magical. The question is how they achieved such precision with the tools available to them. Were they using abrasives, templates, measuring systems, highly specialized labor? Probably some combination of all of these. But even then, the site still feels far ahead of what most people expect from ancient construction. Puma Punku is one of those places that makes you stop and think, this doesn't look handmade, and yet somehow it was. 5. Coricancha, Peru. Still in Peru, Coricancha shows a different side of ancient engineering. Where Puma Punku feels almost industrial, Coricancha is elegant and refined. The Inca masonry here is famous for its incredibly tight stone joints and its ability to survive earthquakes, far better than many later buildings constructed by Europeans. That's a huge clue. The Incas were not just stacking stones, they were designing with the environment in mind. Their walls often lean slightly inward, their blocks are carefully shaped, and the joints are so precise that the structures could shift during seismic activity without collapsing. That means the builders understood force, balance, and resilience in a practical way. And that's what makes Coricancha so impressive. It's not just that the structure is old, it's that it works. It solves a real engineering problem with elegance and durability. Modern engineering usually relies on calculations, simulations, and material science. The Incas had none of that in the modern sense, yet they still created architecture that could survive one of the harshest tests nature can throw at it: earthquakes. Coricancha proves that ancient engineering was not crude. It was smart. 6. Derinkuyu, Turkey. Now let's go underground. Derinkuyu is one of the most extraordinary underground cities ever discovered. Carved deep into soft volcanic rock, it includes living spaces, storage rooms, ventilation shafts, stairways, wells, and defensive passages. It is not a single tunnel. It is an entire subterranean world. That alone is amazing. But what makes Derinkuyu truly mind-bending is the system behind it. Any underground city has to solve some very difficult problems: airflow, water supply, temperature control, stability, and protection from collapse. Derinkuyu handled all of that. That means the builders were not just digging randomly, they were thinking in systems. They understood how people would live, move, survive, and defend themselves below the surface. And remember, all of this was done without modern excavation machines or engineering software. To most people, the idea of carving a full city into the earth sounds impossible. To the people who built Derinkuyu, it seems to have been a practical answer to survival. That's what makes ancient engineering so fascinating. Sometimes it wasn't about luxury. It was about staying alive. 7. Göbekli Tepe, Turkey. Next is a site that changed the way many people think about civilization itself: Göbekli Tepe. This is one of the oldest monumental ritual sites ever discovered, and its giant T-shaped pillars are astonishing not only because of their size, but because of their age. The most shocking part is the implication. For a long time, many people assumed that large-scale architecture only came after farming, settled villages, and organized states. Göbekli Tepe complicates that story. It suggests that groups of people may have been capable of coordinated monumental building much earlier than expected. That changes everything. The engineering challenge here is not just carving and moving the stones. It's the social organization needed to plan, gather labor, and execute a large-scale project long before the rise of cities as we usually imagine them. And the carvings are beautiful too, animals, symbols, and patterns that hint at a rich symbolic world. Göbekli Tepe is not just a structure. It is a message from a time we still don't fully understand. And it asks a huge question: what else did early humans know that we have underestimated? 8. Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt. Of course, no list like this would be complete without the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is one of the most famous structures in the world, but fame should not make us less impressed. In fact, the more you study it, the more astonishing it becomes. The pyramid scale alone is remarkable. It consists of millions of stone blocks arranged with extraordinary accuracy. Its alignment is incredibly precise, and its construction required planning on a level that still inspires debate today. What makes the Great Pyramid so powerful is not mystery alone. It is consistency. The structure is symmetrical, durable, and aligned with a level of care that shows just how advanced the builders were in geometry, surveying, and project coordination. Even with all our modern tools, replicating the Great Pyramid exactly would be a massive undertaking. That means the ancient builders were not improvising. They were executing a massive plan. And the fact that this structure still stands, thousands of years later, says everything about how well that plan worked. The Great Pyramid is often treated like a symbol of ancient mystery, but it is also a symbol of engineering discipline. 9. Longyou Caves, China. Finally, we come to one of the most underrated wonders on this list, the Longyou Caves. These are enormous artificial caverns carved out of solid rock in China, and what makes them so astonishing is the sheer amount of material that had to be removed to create them. The interior walls show consistent patterns, and the scale of the excavation suggests a project that required enormous effort, planning, and labor coordination. What's especially strange is that their exact original purpose remains debated. Were they storage spaces? Shelters? Ritual sites? Something else entirely? Whatever their function, the engineering challenge is obvious. Someone had to carve these chambers by hand, move the debris, maintain structural stability, and preserve usable space in a way that has lasted for centuries. And that is why Longyou Caves deserve a place on this list. They are not just mysterious. They are physically overwhelming. When you stand inside a man-made space that large, carved straight out of rock, it forces you to rethink the limits of ancient labor and planning. So what do these 9 ancient structures teach us? They teach us that ancient people were not primitive in the way we often imagine. They were inventive, patient, organized, and far more capable than modern assumptions sometimes allow. Baalbek shows us scale. Kailasa Temple shows us vision. Sacsayhuamán shows us resilience. Puma Punku shows us precision. Coricancha shows us adaptation. Kuyu shows us survival engineering. Göbekli Tepe shows us social complexity. The Great Pyramid shows us discipline. And Longyou Caves show us endurance. Together, they form one big challenge to modern certainty. Not because they prove lost aliens or magic, but because they prove that human beings, long before modern technology, were capable of extraordinary engineering feats. And maybe that is the real mystery. Not whether these structures should exist, but how ancient builders managed to create them so far ahead of expectations. Because when you look at the evidence, the answer is clear. They existed. They were real. And they were built by people who knew far more than we often give them credit for. So the next time someone says ancient people were simple, remember this: they built things we still struggle to explain.